What's up, Kevin here? Look at this, I got a new bandsaw. Yeah, this is the Craftsman 14-inch 1 horsepower bandsaw. I picked it up at my local Sears. I purchased this to replace the 12-inch 3/4 horsepower Craftsman bandsaw that I have. It's about 10 years old and it's having some issues right now that I don't feel like dealing with. It's out in my garage, it's about 10 degrees out there, and as you know, the woodworking just can't stop. So I had to bite the bullet and go pick this little guy up. So as I was unboxing, assembling, and making all the necessary adjustments to this, I got the camera out and I shot a little video showing all those steps. And then throughout the video, I kind of gave my first impressions, and then at the very end, I did a full review of the saw itself. So if you're interested in seeing that, stay tuned. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. Basically, I just installed 24 little carriage bolts, nuts, and washers. The next step is to take a little 1/2-inch socket wrench and tighten down all these nuts. There's 4 holes here at the corners that these bolts fit through to attach the saw to the stand. So before I tighten it down, I'm going to drop these bolts down into these holes to make sure I don't have a problem with them lining up once everything's tightened down. Alright, so I got the bandsaw on its stand, moved to its permanent location. I didn't record me lugging this thing across the room because it wasn't a pretty sight. It was a chore. I mean, it was heavy. If you've got an extra person, by all means, enlist their help. My next step is to install the dust port and then the table. Okay, so according to the instruction manual, the next step is to install this 2.5-inch dust port. It came with these 2 socket head screws. It just mounts on the front here, and then the screws get mounted from the inside. Of course, you have a blade and a wheel kind of in the way. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up this cast iron table before I install it on the saw. Guess I'll just use some mineral spirits and a shop towel. So yeah, I just keep a little bit of mineral spirits in this old mouthwash bottle. probably mark that. Wouldn't that be? Put a big skull and crossbones on it or something. I don't have kids around here, so nobody's gonna do anything stupid. It's a lot easier than pouring out a big metal jug, you know. And I guess I'll put a little coat of paste wax on it too while I've got it right here. I just use this Johnson's paste wax. I'm just going to put the coat of wax on, and then instead of waiting for it to dry, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the table, and then I'll just buff it off later. Okay, so maybe you noticed when I set this table down on this trunnion, the trunnion is not centered under the table, so you can't just set the table on here and walk away and go get your bolts. It's going to tip forward. So I set it here. We got a clamp the table to a corner of the trunnion over here. So that gives me time to install these 4 bolts through the trunnion into the table. Now I'm going to tip this table forward and install a table leveling bolt on the underside of the table. Okay, so the next step says use the hex socket head cap screw, washer, bushing, and wing nut for correcting the working table flatness. I don't know what that means. Luckily there's a picture. I've never heard that term. Okay, so the screw and the washer going from the top, there's a little bushing, and the wing nut attached from the bottom. To square the table to the blade from side to side, you simply place a square flat on the table near the blade, loosen the knob that holds the trunnion in place, and tilt the table until it's square. Once it's set square, you tighten the knob that holds the trunnion, and then you adjust the table leveling bolt. Okay, so now that you've squared the table to the blade from side to side, you want to make sure that the table is square to the blade front to back. So I placed a square on the back non-tooth side of the blade. I don't know if you can see on this, but there's a slight gap at the top of the square between the square and the blade. So I'm going to show you how to set that perfectly square. So you come around to the side of the bandsaw that has the bolts that attach the lower trunnion, and there's 2 nuts at the bottom of that flange there. You just loosen those a couple of turns, and then there's tiny little black set screws. And if you tighten those set screws, it pushes this out, which moves the back of the table up. So in my case, that's what I need to do. I need to lift the table up so that that square moves forward towards the blade. Obviously the reverse would be true. So I'm going to tighten the set screw, and we'll see, hopefully you can see that move. There, dead on. Just a little FYI, My saw arrived with the belt configuration set on the fastest of the 2 speeds that you can set on this saw, which is not appropriate for hardwoods. It's more for metals and softwoods, so you might want to check that before you make your first hardwood cut. The distance from the blade gullet to the outer edge of the tire on the upper wheel is about 7.5 millimeters, and the distance from the gullet to the outside of the tire on the lower wheel is 5.5 millimeters. So it's off by about 2 millimeters. Now, I don't know if that's enough to cause, you know, the blade to eventually wander off the wheel, but I'm going to go ahead and go through these steps of tilting this lower wheel in an effort to see if I can get that at least within 1 millimeter. And it'll be good practice if nothing else. So what you do is you come around on the opposite side of the machine, and this is the axle that wheel rides on, and you've got these 4 bolts that hold it, you know, in its current plane. Okay, so right now the blade on the lower wheel is riding too far outward towards the edge of the tire. So to get the blade to ride more in the center of the tire, I'm going to tilt that bottom wheel. I'm going to loosen this top screw and tighten this bottom screw, which will cause the top of the wheel to tilt outward that way and the bottom of the wheel to come this way. And that should force that blade more towards the center of the tire. So again, I'm going to loosen this one and tighten this one, which should then push this upward, tilting the top of the blade out and the bottom of the top of the wheel out and the bottom of the wheel in. So that's what I'm going to try. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but that worked perfectly. The blade is now riding perfectly in the center of the upper wheel and the lower wheel. To get the blade guide bearings to ride properly in alignment with the blade, not only did I have to loosen this screw and slide the whole fixture forward on this little, there's a little plate right underneath there, but then I had to go underneath here. There's another bolt that you loosen that's in a slot that can move maybe a ½ an inch. On mine, I had to loosen that, pull that forward, and then go up top and pull this all forward. And once I did that, then you can see the guide bearings can come all the way up, you know, right there on the blade. So it's not enough just to loosen this top thing. I mean, maybe yours is going to be different, but that's what I had to do. Alright, well, I've got the saw assembled. You saw me make the first test cut. All in all, the assembly went very easy. Basically, you assemble the stand, set the saw on the stand, attach it with 4 bolts, set the table on, attach it with 4 bolts, put on a couple of accessories like this tension knob, a little tool accessory holder on the back. With all that done, I have to say this is a bare bones bandsaw. I mean, absolutely no bells or whistles at all. But you know, it doesn't disappoint me and it doesn't surprise me because I pretty much knew what I was getting. I did a little research beforehand and I owned the older model, the 12-inch 3/4 horsepower. Probably the only thing that surprises me is they actually did away with the few extras that the older model had. For instance, they did away with the lamp. The older model had a lamp on a flexible neck. They did away with the ruler and fence. They did away with the little knobs that move the blade guide bearings in and out and side to side. But you know, really the only thing that I miss is the lamp. That would have been nice to have on this model. The ruler, I would have removed that. I probably never would have installed it because the first thing I'm going to do is build an in-feed and an out-feed table for this guy. Those little knobs, really not going to miss. There was one knob for each of the 3 bearings, so it really didn't save any time, and they were kind of cheap. So along with removing a few of the extras that I don't think many people are going to miss, they improved a few of the annoying things about the previous model. First of which is the door latch. I really like that there's only one knob per door, and it's on the outside. It's a great improvement over the other model, take my word for it. The other thing they did was redesign a little blade guard underneath the table. The other model had 2 little pieces of plastic that kind of sandwiched the blade together, and it made it difficult to install and remove blades. On this model, they've put that safety guard on the door. So when you open the door, the guard's out of the way. So it makes it much easier to install and remove blades. There's still no quick release tension arm for the blade tension. You just have to unscrew this knob a few turns, and it's not that big a deal. You know, as far as cost, it's February 2015. This saw was listed for $424 in the Sears store, not on sale or anything like that. I purchased for $50 a 3-year in-home service agreement because, you know, this is a lower end price bandsaw, so I figured that was a decent investment. For 3 years, they'll come out and fix anything, and if they can't fix it, I'm supposed to get a new one. So as long as they hold true to that agreement, I think that's a decent investment. I opened up a Sears MasterCard and got $41 off this saw, which about paid for the service agreement. I'll pay that off as soon as I get the bill. So all in all, with tax and the service agreement, I paid $467. And the great thing is that I could go pick it up in the same day, bring it home, and install it by myself. It arrives with a 1/4" blade already installed. I wish they would have provided maybe a larger blade, a 3/8 or a 1/2" blade, because I immediately had to get online and buy a couple of 1/2" 3 TPI blades. But the 1/4" blade that it came with seems to cut pretty well. In the future, when I install those other blades, I'm going to do another video demonstrating some resawing. I'm also going to show the little jig that I have that allows me to convert like 7 or 8" logs into lumber. I'm also going to do a video showing the build of the in-feed and out-feed extension tables that I'm going to put on this. So by the time you're watching this, those videos are probably already up. So check the description box for a link to those videos. And if you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you found this video beneficial, please hit the like button, and I will see you next time.